On this episode of Robe Chats, the podcast.
When you're looking at lighting design, lighting includes controls. That was a passion project because I don't have enough, obviously. Kind of my motto now is empowering people to empower themselves.
Lighting designer, Amy Lux. Welcome back to Robe Chats, the podcast. I'm Brian Matthews. I'm your host once again. And we are recording today at the United States Institute of Theater Technology, the USITT Conference and Expo here in Columbus, Ohio. And we are joined today by Miss Amy Lux. Amy, thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
First, we kind of want to get a little bit about you and your background. How did you get wrangled into this crazy industry that we call lighting?
Well, to be perfectly honest, it was an accident in the beginning. I was super shy in high school, even though we had an incredible theater program, and I was very attracted to it, but I had no idea how to get myself over there. And so I was years later, I went to school for graphic design. I moved to Austin. I was looking for graphic design work, and I was making flyers for my friends' bands and CD covers and stuff, and not making a living.
As you would in Austin.
As you would. And I was not making a living. And so a friend of mine said, hey, you can do this pickup work with some stagehand stuff if you just want to get some extra money. And I did my first gig, and it was so much fun. I ended up making show call, which I didn't know at the time was a coveted position. Since I was a new person, people were like, where'd she come from? But I just really enjoyed the atmosphere and all the energy of it. And so I thought I was going to do that once or twice a month. I just went full on after that. And, since I was a visual artist and a graphic designer, my first positions were props and set painting and things like that. And then I just really was, very attracted to the lighting. And so I said, can I try the lighting crew? And so they put me on the lighting crew, and it was over. I immediately went out and took every training session I could. I went and got Verilight moving light tech training. I did that for a number of years. I got Hog and Grandma, console training. Basically, I was doing a lot of moving light tech and moving light repair and console repair. And so that was enough to get me on a tour. And then I was out on a tour with a bunch of gear. And because I learned how to repair moving lights, I got hired by a rental house because they were like, no one's ever been out on a tour and didn't just send our stuff back every week to be fixed. Like, you just fixed it.
You fixed it on the road.
And I was like, yeah, well, this is my job. I'm the moving light tech. But I mean, before I went on tour, I was in Austin doing South by ACL, the opera, the ballet, the Broadways that would come through. And I just loved it. I loved it. So I just kept following the curiosity.
And so kind of what transitioned you over from the live entertainment side to the system side?
Yeah, so eventually I did make my way into programming and LDing from behind the console, and someone asked me to do programming for a permanent install, which ironically was for a radio station, which you wouldn't think they need a lighting rig. But there was a broadcast room, and so I did this. I had never heard of permanent before.
Right.
And so I did that. I just programmed it, and I thought, it's not going to go in the back of a truck or a warehouse, never to be seen again. Like, it's going to continue living on. And so that got me really curious. And then I joined with a manufacturer for Ketra lighting, which was a startup at the time. And I was programming for them, and I was out in the field on construction, helping the electrical contractors understand how to do the all of the wiring for it, running the LV, running the DMX wiring, and understanding it. So then that kind of brought me into and I just kept following the curiosity, So then once I had a taste for permanent install and architectural, they just kind of led one to the other, And I really do enjoy teaching people and helping people like literally let the light bulb go off for them, and helping them understand there's more tools in their toolkit.
Yeah.
So the curiosity of and the blend of taking what we do in entertainment lighting and putting it into the built environment just like really hits a spark for me. So I just kept on going with learning all different kinds of control systems and how to integrate them together, how to make them make sense together, and I just love that. It's worked for me.
Do you find that your background as a graphic designer, being such a visual medium, really kind of helped you in the lighting world with it being a visual medium?
Yeah, I think for me, there was a combination of my understanding of color, my understanding of balance, and all the things that go into creating a graphic design layout and
Right.
creating a design that, you know, has pop or has interest. And combining that with the moving light repair because I knew what was inside the lights. So when I got to programming, I took the design elements from graphic design with the elements of the what was inside the moving lights, and that was what allowed me to understand programming and to kind of create designs from that perspective.
Right.
That blend really helped a lot.
We have, here at USITT, we brought in our Robe NRG students, which is the next Robe generation. And we're kind of trying to show them all the different avenues that can be pursued in lighting, because a lot of them come from the world of theater and they just think theater, concert, live event. But in that systems design, sort of talk a little bit about that, about how you approach lighting design from a systems perspective. How do you, when somebody gives you, a blank canvas of a radio station or a building or, a conference room or something like that, how do you go about creating that type of design?
Yeah. For me, I didn't have a school education, and I love that there's so many programs now. I really figured things out just by putting stuff together and experimenting and making it work. And there are so many different systems. So now I'm very deep in controls where I don't even I can't think about lighting separately from controls. And I think that in entertainment, that's very natural because we do them together. Lighting includes controls. We don't do lighting without controls. In architectural lighting, they're completely different departments. So a lot of lighting specifiers don't understand controls at all. And in order to make your lights work, you do have to have a system design.
Yeah.
You have to have some kind of system engineering. So when I'm thinking about the project, because there's so many different kinds of controls, I'm thinking about, is it on an emergency line? What are the general illumination requirements? Does it have to have some kind of dynamic or theatrical dynamic element? What is the application? And then that application can really decide what type of lights we're using, of course, but then also what type of controls we need. Is this an isolated room, or is it a whole building? Is it a whole city? Are there buildings across the street from each other that need to be talked to together on the cloud? You really start to expand, how far and capable your system needs to be, and just depending on what exactly is the product. And even with traditional architectural lighting, even though a lot of that is white light, the controls also aren't always the same. So you've got 0 to 10, or you've got phase control, and that can be ELV, or every light has a different, you have to talk to it the way it wants to, the way it's going to listen to the protocol.
Right.
And you have to take all of that into account. So it can be complicated, but I think that when you're looking at lighting design, they do, in my opinion, they should be looked at holistically, because you can do a lighting design, and if you don't do your controls correctly, your lighting may not do what you wanted it to do if you're missing that piece. So, maybe you've got a controller that you've got some colored lights, and it can change the color of the light, but maybe it can't change them without human intervention, meaning it's not automated. So my user has to go up and push a button in order for the room to turn red. They have to go interact with it. There are actually in architectural some controllers that do that. With the entertainment background, I was like, what is the point? If it's going to change color, like let it
Let
do
it go.
let it automate,
Right.
But in architectural, there are some that do that. So a lot of specifiers don't understand that, and then they, if you're not able to educate them the capabilities, then they might end up having an application that didn't turn out the way they expected it to because they didn't know the right questions to ask. So I try to really look at it holistically so I can advise to make sure that they're really getting what they want.
What are some of the biggest challenges you face when you're in an architectural lighting design environment?
I mean, I think that the fact that controls is separate is a really big challenge. And another thing is that lighting is one of those things that we don't really think about or notice until it's wrong.
Right.
And so a lot of times with architectural, even though lighting, like I said, it can be complicated, a lot of times it ends up being that it comes in late and the budget's already been spent on, other furnishings or finishes. And so a lot of times lighting does somehow end up being an afterthought. I really do try to work with people to bring the specification earlier so that we have time to massage it to be correct and in the right budget and everything. So I think that's still a challenge in architectural, to have the lighting conversation sooner while we're designing the building or while we're designing the room, so that it doesn't have to be rushed and then we're up against lead times and we ran out of budget and things. So having the conversation earlier is always helpful.
Well, when I was doing my background on you, one of your installations really caught my eye, and that's the Meow Wolf. I've been to Meow Wolf, and it's quite an experience. So talk a little bit about that. I mean, you also, it's a convergence station, but then you also mentioned the Omega in Las Vegas as well.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about the thing that blew my mind when I walked in and was experiencing each room was just, how did someone come up with this in their head and bring this to life? Because it's such a Dr. Seussical, whimsical fantasy world that you walk into, and each room is completely different. When you were working on your part, how did that come out of your head?
Yeah, I mean, that was a wild project. It's so many different collaborators coming together. And when I got there, they had already done the House of Eternal Return in Santa Fe, which is an incredible space. And I a little biased, I feel like that should be everyone's first Meow Wolf because it's the OG. And it just is so unique because it was before they were professional, and it was before they had a formal company, and they were still baristas, and they were still delivering pizza, and and then going over with glue guns late at night to like finish their projects. Really, really authentic space. So when I came in, that one was already built, and they had started the concepting of, and they had gotten the locations for Vegas and Denver, which is Omega Mart and Convergence Station. So we were actually designing those at the same time, which was wild because Vegas was a 50,000 square foot space and Denver's 100,000 square foot, and completely different narratives. It still has the overarching multiverse narrative, but they have their own narratives within those projects. And at the time, I was the only professional full-time lighting designer, and I was brought into the tech team, which was an incredible group of creatives that were mostly coders on Raspberry Pi and things like that didn't quite scale to 100,000 square feet. And so I had to come on pretty quickly and teach everybody what DMX was and teach them, what a wash versus a spot, because a lot of the stuff that they were getting was like aftermarket stuff and mostly LED tape, and like little pucks and things. There wasn't really like a design. It was more like, we need light here. Let's put this light here.
Yeah.
And so I created like a training deck and a spreadsheet full of, here's a bunch of different kinds of washes. Here's a bunch of different kinds of spots. Like, this is what these different effects do. And, there's the internal team, but then there's also so many outside artists that are also working as contributors. So it was literally hundreds of artists. And, some were more tech savvy than others. Some were more lighting savvy than others. But there was an overarching need to kind of create a system that was something that they could scale and repeat. And so for me, the main things that, once I said, I really love this thing and I really want to light it up and it's cool and it's going to like go on this table, but we have a whole building. I think it's going to be better if I focus on the infrastructure. So then we created an infrastructure team. So then I was able to concentrate on what I call triple threats, which was going to be a light that can do 3 very important functions. One is going to be that it's already emergency listed, so I'm going to be able to put it on the emergency system. It's going to meet general illumination requirements, which are needed for built environments for real buildings, that not an entertainment style light that can actually fulfill that general illumination requirement by an architect's spec, and that it can go into theatrical mode. So, I had kind of a handful of things that I really concentrated on, the global lighting and global system, and then taught the artists and taught everyone else how to light so that they could put it within their own projects.
Right.
But then I kind of built the skeleton around it so that I knew that every room would have that triple threat covering all the bases. And then we had DMX ports, whether that artist was wanting tech in their room, like technical lighting or not. We put a DMX port going back to the system in every room so that if it was a flex space, if a different artist came in, if it changed at any point or they decided they want to add lighting, that they would be able to tap into the system. So it was kind of layered where we had architectural lighting control, entertainment lighting control. Then we went down to kind of spreading out to like different artist-specific controls like Raspberry Pi or Touch Design or something where they could code themselves, but then it always tied back into these more traditional architectural and entertainment control systems.
Yeah. Well, it was quite the experience. I went to the one in Denver. That was my first Meow Wolf. I'll have to check out the one in Santa Fe.
It's very different. Yes, in Santa Fe, it's very different.
I'll have to check that one out because it was. If you
And
haven't been to Meow
Denver's
Wolf,
great.
go to Meow Wolf. It's quite the afternoon.
You have to go to the Vegas one too.
I'll need to go to
Omega
the
Mart's
Vegas one.
my baby. Like that's my favorite one.
Yeah,
I poured my heart and soul into that one. So yeah.
I'll check that out at next LDI. Take a trip over there. You mentioned that you did a lot of training to the different collaborators that were on the project, and you also have a company, LoboLux, where you do create materials that are case studies, training guides for specifiers and stuff like that. Just talk a little bit about that side of what you do and how you create those types of materials for different companies and different specifiers and things like that.
Yeah, I found that I love helping people. My motto now is empowering people to empower themselves. And it really kind of started for me when I was out on tour and when I was with Ketra doing all those construction jobs where I didn't necessarily have the bandwidth to do everything. Like none of us have the bandwidth to do everything ourselves.
Right.
And really it started with tour where I was in a different venue every night. I didn't know the crew. And I had to very quickly identify people's strengths and weaknesses so that I could task them efficiently. And that we would have a good show and everyone would be happy. And so I learned to kind of see somebody's strengths and point them that way so that they didn't get stuck doing something that maybe they weren't great at. And, in that process, on the tours that I was on, I was kind of a smaller LD. So I was often on pretty underfunded tours and questionable crew in some venues. I had like a
Questionable venues,
volunteer
questionable crew.
high school football team at one point, and I had like prison labor in Indigo at one point, and I just had like all kinds of experiences.
You are the first LD that I've ever heard say they had prison labor.
We did one
on their
venue.
show.
One venue. I was like, well, this is a new one. So I just had to learn to pivot and help people that didn't necessarily have a lot of experience, and so we also didn't have a lot of time. So I found myself finding ways to teach people a skill very quickly so that they could execute it. And I just really enjoyed the moment of somebody being like, oh, wow, I get it now. And then when I went over to Ketra, there was only 2 of us programming the entire country, and it was a startup, and it was a very popular product, but it was also a complicated product. And so I started as a freelancer, but they kept me so busy that I just wasn't taking any other clients. And then eventually, I went full time, and I said, okay, I'm only going to go full time if you let me create a Ketra Academy so that I can train people how to do this when we're not around. And then basically that ended up being my I did still do programming, but my main goal, like my main role was to East Coast, Midwest, West Coast home base in a rotation once a week, every month, where I would go around and I created different modules where it's all the same product, it's all the same information, but I created it in a way that I'm going to speak your language to you. So if you're a salesperson, my deck was going to use language that salespeople use. If you're a programmer, I had another deck that was like the same thing, but it was like focused on the programming. Or if you're an EC, I had a copy of the deck that talked about it on electrical terms. So I created, five different versions of the same material, but speaking to you in a language that you understand,
Right.
so that it was, I'm not giving you information that's going over your head. And that was really effective to really increase our bandwidth. And I just found that I really loved doing that. So fast forward, where I had a lot of different opportunities with a lot of different groups that I've worked with doing AIAs and lunch and learns and training sessions. And I realized that I was getting a little bit of a dopamine hit creating the decks because my degree is in graphic design,
Right.
and I had abandoned that completely for my obsession with lighting. And I was like, oh, I get to do graphic design and lighting like all in one.
Bringing it full circle.
And I was like, why don't I just make this a product? Because I was just enjoying it so much. And it was kind of just a byproduct at first, but then I was like, let me just put some effort into this. So LoboLux is, now a company that focuses on digital assets primarily, that is training decks, controls, guides. Sometimes it's, those products for manufacturers. They can be for specifiers. I can create the work and you can deliver it, or I can create the work and I can deliver it, although I don't have the bandwidth to always deliver. So now I'm working on recording some of those modules so that they can be self-guided and I don't always have to be there. Of course, we'll still be there as a support, but so it's just really, I love teaching people. I love helping people, and that's just a way that I get to do it that I really enjoy.
Nice. Are there people throughout your career that you, when you look back on it, you that are key to helping you along the way, that maybe mentored you or gave you a break? Are there people that did that for you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I am very fortunate that I've had a lot of support throughout my career, especially in my early years when I was still kind of figuring things out. I often called it like text support because I had a couple people on the other side of the phone that I'd be like, oh my God, this thing is happening. The show's about to start. But Richard Cadena was the mentor I was talking about in that story. I went to one of his classes on electrics early in my career. And
very smart man.
He's incredible. And I was a broke art kid. And, the class was over in San Marcos and I was living in Austin. And I didn't even remember this, but Richard pointed it out to me. He was telling the story. I rode my bike. He reminded me I rode my bike from Austin to San Marcos because I had no other way to get there, but I wanted to learn so bad.
Not a short bike ride.
Yeah, I just wanted to learn so bad. But it paid off because then I got to meet Richard. And, after that, I sent him, I had a question, I sent him a message. He was very supportive. And we just, grew the mentorship. And he's always been there. Now he's a friend, but he's just always been there. And, he's been outstanding throughout my career. But there's also been just people all along the way who have just been very supportive and have helped. And I think, we all have to do that for each other. We all need to, which is, USITT, it's kind of the epitome of helping the younger generation come up. And it's so great to now be on the other side of that and be able to give back what I received.
Yeah, this show has such a different vibe than the others that I've been to. It's not so much about selling things. It's more about supporting the people that are coming to check out the things. And it gives it a really cool vibe.
Yeah.
There's also another group that you've recently started that I wanted to talk to you about, and that's with the behind the scenes, the Ghostlight Runners.
Yes, the Golden Ghostlight Runners.
Golden Ghostlight Runners.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about how you started that and what the mission of the Golden Ghostlight Runners is.
Yeah, that was a passion project because I don't have enough, obviously. But I was, I'm an amateur runner, and we've been through a lot of collective trauma over the past few years, and a lot of us work a lot. A lot of us are married to our job, and don't have a lot of time outside of our careers. And so I was just feeling a lot with what's going on in the world over the past several years.
Yeah.
And looking for a way to give back. And I was really struggling because I couldn't quite figure out how to not just be lighting Amy at work and humanitarian Amy after work. And I kind of just had a little bit of a breaking point where I was just like, if I can't be a good human, like I don't know if it makes sense anymore. Like I love what I do, but I need to figure out a way to also feel like I'm contributing to society in, a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Lighting is meaningful and art is meaningful, but there's a lot of bigger issues, right, than what we do in entertainment and buildings. And so the LDI 5K 2 years ago, I found out about it because I'm a late blooming runner. I didn't run early in my life. I started in my 40s, just to kind of get some break from work. I was like, I need to get away from a computer or a phone. I need to get away from my devices, and this is a good way for me to not be able to look at my phone. So I started with that, and then I found the LDI 5K and thought, this is incredible. This is something that I can do and bring community into my work and into my career. And it all, it's supporting behind the scenes. So after the 5K, I linked up with behind the scenes and I learned about the Ghostlight group. So you can make a Ghostlight group for anything you want to do. They've got a cyclist Ghostlight group. They've got the Long Beach Long Riders, motorcycle group. You can make it there's a bunch of different ones. You can make whatever you want. Anyone's welcome to open a Ghostlight group. And so I started it off, and last year it was just me for, the first quarter, and I was just kind of like
the
shouting
lone
in
Golden
the void.
Ghostlight Runner.
Yeah, and trying to recruit people. And then, by the spring I had 5 people on the team, and then end of summer, early fall, it kind of like blew up a little bit, and all of a sudden we had a bunch of people joining, and then LDI 5K happened again this year in 2024, and I recruited a bunch of people. I brought a bunch of people there, and then I recruited a bunch of people that were there, and now we're over 50 runners, and we even have, we had awards. I gave out awards to everybody that joined the first inaugural run. We had little medals that I gave away along with the water bottles. Yeah. And it's just been incredible because we like to party. We throw parties and events. That's what we do for a living. So we're really good at it. That doesn't always come with healthy habits. And so being able to do something that's wellness-based and have so many people show up, and for all levels, we welcome people that are, you can walk a 5K. You can go I'm a slow runner. It's not about competition. It's not about being, advanced or a certain way. We welcome people in wheelchairs and various abilities. But the point is that this is something that we can all do, and you can do it from anywhere. You just sign up with me. We have our own page on Behind the Scenes website, and then the seasons are quarters. So every quarter we put up a new set of races, and then someone can donate in your name directly to Behind the Scenes.
That's behindthescenes.org?
Yes. And ours is bts.help/golden. I think that's the shortcut.
That's the shortcut.
Yeah, for our page. But yes, behind the
check
scenes.
Check it out if you want to join the group. That's really cool. I like that you did that. You didn't. What's the farthest you've ever run? Is the 5K the max, or have you tried others?
I have tried others. Last year I did my first 2 50Ks. So that is the entry level distance of ultra running.
Right.
And I wanted to see if I could accomplish that, and I did.
And you did.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quite a feat. I'm not a runner. I couldn't. I mean, I guess I could walk a 5K. Yeah. I have walked a 5K.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, just kind of looking back over your career and kind of looking at the different designs you've done with being on the concert side and also on the system side. If you were kind of just talking to a student or somebody that's kind of looking at either, What would you say in a general matter are the qualities that somebody needs to be a good designer in those areas? What do they need to have that'll kind of help them along the way?
I think my answers for that are a little non-traditional because I think we are going to usually look at the principles of design, but that information is out there. So normally what I would suggest, or what I feel impelled to suggest, is two main qualities. And one is to be able to listen and observe and really take in consideration for what the application needs. So like remove the ego a little bit and think about the application. I think when I was a young designer, I definitely made some design choices that I thought were cool, but it really wasn't related to the application. So it looked cool, it was fine, but I now can see how I could have done better if I really observed a little bit more.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that one of my biggest takeaways is that because I switched careers from graphic design and I felt like I was behind and I didn't know enough and I didn't go to school for this. So I had, a lot of anxiety around always trying to keep up and trying to make sure that I knew everything. And, it took me to several years when I knew enough to know that I would never know everything.
Right.
And once I realized that, I was like, okay, so how do I keep going? And also, how did I get here? And I realized that my biggest skill was that I was resourceful. So when I did hit a problem or I did hit some kind of barrier, that I was able to step back and find a solution and to get solution based and to, look it up or try something, experiment, but just to be solution based to resolve whatever that issue was. And I wish I could save myself years of anxiety thinking I had to know everything and just say, no, I just need to know how to figure it out. Yeah. Or I need to know the right person to ask, I think that's a really important thing for especially people that are new to the industry to consider, that the technology is going to keep changing. There's no way to ever know everything. Just understand ways to figure it out.
Well, I'll let you get out on this last one. And again, this is more of a general philosophical thing. When you are doing these designs or creating these designs, what is it that you love about it? What keeps you passionate about lighting design, that keeps you creating the way that you do?
Well, I mean, for me, it's lighting in itself is so much bigger than just design. I get really philosophical with it because when you think about it, lighting and shadow are the entire reason for all of our perception. So if you think about walking down an alley in the middle of the day, that may be fine, but when there's no light at night and your vision is cut off, it could be scary. That's just an example of how light and darkness shape the way we perceive the world that we're in. And so with design, when you're able to cultivate that shape and that color and that mood and really treat it as layers and texture, and that's what I love, is kind of building that mood and how you could change it in an instant.
Yeah.
That's what I love about design.
Nice. Well, Amy, thank you very much for taking a few moments to sit and chat with us. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. It's so great being here. Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Remember, you can find all of our podcasts on your favorite podcasting platforms. You can also watch us on YouTube, and we'll sign off today as we always do. May the light always shine your way. You can make it the Robe way. Have a great day.